guys, welcome back to week number 4 of Project Planche. Before we get into this week, I want to mention a couple of things. First of all is that I'm somewhere different. I'm actually staying at a friend's house this week. I'm currently in week number 6 of the programme, so you'll see that in coming weeks, how to work out when travelling. The second is thank you to the sponsors of this programme. That is firstly Ido, who make this incredible hoodie that I'm wearing, and Oxland, who make the multivitamin that I've been taking for like the past year. Links to those in the description down below. Another thing is, if you've been enjoying this series or enjoy this episode or just want to help out a friend or me, then please share this video, share the program, share it with a friend. Incredibly, we just hit 10,000 downloads on the program, which is incredible. I'd never expect to get that sort of support from this free program that I've released. So if it helps you out, if you're enjoying it, then please share it with a friend, and that would really mean a lot to me and help me out, as well as you'd be helping out somebody else as well. So let's get into week number 4. This week is all about overloading with volume. We're going to be going for 5 to 7 sets on our primary movements and 4 sets on our secondary movements. This is going to be quite a jump up, and our workouts are going to become much more intense. This means we're going to have to improve our recovery, make sure we're getting lots of sleep, make sure we're foam rolling, stretching and recovering maximally, and that should help us ingrain these movements into our muscle memory and really make the gains from this week that we can make. So as always guys, the program and everything else I talk about in this video is in the description down below. Without further ado, let's get into Project Planche week number 4 with our straight arm day. So jumping straight into some planche work at the beginning of this straight arm day. I always like to test my planche at the beginning of most of my sessions just because it is the ultimate goal. It is starting to feel a little bit optimistic, but I'm still going to work hard towards it, and hopefully you never know where we'll end up at the end of this 8 weeks. So for the planche exercise for this workout, we're just going for some really solid holds. The idea here is to have good form, a nice horizontal back, and really make sure the scapula is depressed and protracted. We just want to amass a lot of muscle, a lot of time under tension in this workout with the higher volume, and hopefully build that muscle memory into our brains so that we can then smash it in for the goals. Then moving on to some advanced front lever isometrics. I've been using this progression a little bit because it feels more transferable than a straddle front lever, because it's using the same sort of muscles that you have to use to hold your legs in that full front lever compared to the straddle front lever. It uses slightly different muscles, and I feel it definitely replicates the movement a little bit better. We're then moving into the standard straddle handstand press. Now this is a movement that I've had for like the past year and a half, although I'm still not particularly happy with the form. I haven't really been training it until this program. I started throwing it in a lot more, and I think the form even over the past 4 weeks has improved loads just training it once a week. So I'm really happy with my progress, but I think I really need to work on my compression, which is why I've been including a lot of these L-sit isometrics into my training. Again, focusing on that engagement in the hip flexor, really trying to tuck my hips under and into my stomach to really compress my core. Although I think one thing that might be holding me back, as well as having kind of weak hip flexors, is having some somewhat tight hamstrings. I mean, I haven't got super tight hamstrings, but if I can improve my compression quite a lot, I need to improve my hamstring flexibility and my hip flexor strength. The idea of doing this will be with loaded mobility. So one of the first examples of that is, as usual, these bridge holds. I couldn't find my usual position, but a wall will do. I like to really push my shoulders into this and feel like I'm kind of ripping my chest apart. Although I really do feel this in my scapula, like the next day I will have really bad DOMs in my upper back from just doing bridge. Then mixing things up, instead of doing the usual skin the Catas, I'm going to be just working the advanced tuck back lever. And that's because my lats felt quite fatigued at the end of this higher volume session. So I just decided to work the shoulder and bicep mobility part of the skin the cat, which is the back lever section. So I was just going for some solid holds again with a nice horizontal back, checking my form in the mirror, sort of between 6 and 20 seconds. Then as a little bit of a test, I decided to do some bridge on the floor. The reason I don't usually do it on the floor is because I like to have my shoulders past my wrists when training the bridge. But it was interesting to see my progression of not being able to really be locked out in a bridge, and then I'm almost having both my legs and my arms locked out in this particular workout, which I'm really pleased with my progression, as I probably said before. Then moving on to the hamstrings and hip flexors, so the front split mobility routine. Speaking of having weak hip flexors earlier, I think that this kneeling bridge quad stretch is actually a great way of improving strength in the hip flexors, as you're kind of like having to actually hold your body together in a way with your hip flexors, as well as your glutes and your hamstrings. So this is one way I'm kind of building strength in those weird ranges of motion. This is one of my favourite stretches though, especially if you have a slight anterior pelvic tilt, which means you have weak hamstrings and glutes but tight hip flexors. This is a great stretch just for balancing those hips out. Then moving on to the usual pulsing hamstring stretch. If you're interested in this exercise and haven't seen it before, then head over to EMMET Lewis's channel, as he has some great tutorials on getting your head to toe, which is the ultimate aim for me by doing these. At the moment I'm managing to get my elbow to toe within the first set from cold on this exercise. So I think previously I've only been able to get there in the second set, so the fact that I'm getting there in the first set now is just showing my mobility is slowly improving. Again with these front splits as well, it's kind of inching closer and closer. Although this isn't a major goal for me, it would be a nice one to achieve. Oh, what is up guys? So it is day number 2, and as usual we are recovering. Got the foam roller and some lacrosse balls, and I'm just going to throw some movement in as well, so I'll ping you the highlights and then on to day 3. So as usual guys, we're on one of my limber lunch times. I've actually been getting really into the Ido Portal style movement lately, and this was one movement I saw online and I thought it looked pretty cool, as well as having some active shoulder mobility there as well, which is one of my main goals, so I thought it was quite a nice little movement to try. So jumping straight into our dynamic day now. Apart from the terrible handstand, we're going for some tuck planche eccentrics. This has probably been one of my favourite exercises ever to do for the planche, and I think it's helped progress my planche the most, so I do always like to try and include it. I feel like it really makes you think about that forward lean and getting your scapula in a good position as well. We're kind of pairing these with these scapular pulls. Now this is another Ido Portal inspired move, and essentially it just works on really focusing on scapular and lat engagement, especially for the front lever, but this probably also has a lot of translation over to the planche as well. You essentially just want to raise your body up, but you're only using your scapula and back. You're kind of not engaging any of your core or sort of muscles below your waist. You're just trying to pull with straight arms and really engage that scapula. This one has been a great strength builder for the front lever for me, so I always again like to try and include it. Because we're going for extra volume today, instead of just doing one exercise as the muscle up and only managing 3 reps, I decided to split out the 2 aspects of the movement, which are the dip and the pull up, and just work them individually, and then this allowed me just to increase the volume without really changing up the workout too much. My ring dips is something that was quite weak to begin with, but following the Body by Rings program, which is by Fitness FAQs, I went from being able to get like 3 or 4 dodgy reps to being able to rep out 8 reps pretty easily. I perform these pull-ups in kind of a back-to-back fashion, and again, like the scapular pulls, I was looking at making sure my scapular engagement was really good. So I was really trying to push my chest to the bar, start the movement with my scapula, so the arm shouldn't bend until your scapula is properly pulled back as you're doing that movement. So these are supposedly possibly perfect pull-ups, but I don't think they're of proper form. But you should definitely feel more of a scapular engagement in your pull-ups. I realised that my endurance is also really bad, as I struggled to get like 8 reps out of a pull-up, whereas previously I've been able to get like 20 reps. Obviously not full range of motion, but my endurance has got a lot worse since I haven't been training lots of pull-ups. So as mentioned, I'm going with the same sort of flow, which are these kind of Ido Portal low bridge rotations. This is just kind of a nice challenge. I'm really enjoying doing this more movement kind of exploration style training. I think after this program I'm going to start experimenting with it a lot more, especially with this sort of Florino, I think it's called, work, which is kind of all this floor twisting and balancing. It's just really, really cool. Really great test of your active flexibility as well. And then moving on to the hangs. Now it probably isn't the most interesting clip to watch, but you just essentially hang by whatever arm you're choosing to do for as long as possible. I do like to make sure my scapula, as always, is a little bit engaged in these, so I'm kind of still tensing my obliques here, making sure I aim somewhat in the right direction. On to some loaded mobility here, and as usual this doesn't really change too much. We're just working with the horse squat primarily, as this is a great way of building strength in the glutes and abductors to transfer over onto our middle splits. This is definitely a bit of a burn, and it kind of almost feels like a bit of a midweek leg session after doing this particular routine. So after those horse squats, we're just going for these middle split slides, and then hold. The whole time you're doing this exercise, you should be tensing your abductors inside of your thigh muscles and your glutes as hard as you can. Like, you should be shaking with how hard you're tensing your legs when you're doing this. I then like to do these kind of semi-straddle ups just to kind of work into that lower position and then transfer over onto these pancake stretches. I suggest if you're new to this exercise that you don't use too much weight, as it can be quite intense on your hamstrings and lower back. You can also, as a progression, raise your bum onto a higher surface and have your feet lower, and that will allow you to get to like a further bent over position and get a bit more benefit out of this stretch. But I've been doing this stretch for like 2 years now, so I can almost pretty much get chest to floor every time. We are on day number 5, it's bent arm day, and I'm just about to head off to the climbing gym. So we're going to do some climbing today. I'm just going to reduce the volume a bit, but still put in the normal workout. So I'll catch up with you guys from there. So as I said, guys, we are at climbing. Now, climbing is something that I've done for like the past 2 years. It's honestly so good for building like pulling strength, grip strength, also flexibility, because you have to actually be pretty flexible to do a lot of the moves. It's also just a great fun way to train back and kind of just hang out with friends and make training a bit more fun, a bit more playful. I didn't actually throw in a pulling exercise, a horizontal pulling exercise in this workout today, simply because of the amount of pulling that you actually get done just doing the activity itself and the climbing itself. So I didn't do any grip work, and I didn't do any horizontal rowing because I just worked it enough doing the actual climbing itself. Slacklining is also something I've done for quite a while now, and it's just a really, really fun activity to do and a great test of balance, which I think I mentioned last week. It's definitely not included that much in training, which is one of the reasons I like those single leg lunges or weighted split squats, but I just like to work a bit of that just for fun. So kicking off our bent arm day, we are utilising these handstand push-ups. Again, just going for max reps here, but simply because max reps is usually just 1 rep. Ultimately, it would be nice to rep out 3 by the end of this program, but we'll see how the progression goes. Then I'm working some one-arm chin eccentrics. Again, going for a higher volume. Wasn't going to go super slow on these, partly because my arms were a bit fatigued after the climbing itself. I do think the lighting looks pretty awesome though in this particular climbing gym. Then working the pseudo planche push-ups. It was really nice to go somewhere that wasn't as busy, Didn't have people constantly running over, and I could just kind of work out, and there actually be so much room just to have fun and play. Definitely makes a difference from the gym, and I cannot wait until summer to be able to work out outside. I'm jealous of all the people in those warm climates. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't do any horizontal pulling, but if you are following this workout, you should be doing some tuck front levers or front lever rows in this particular part of the workout. I did, however, as always, work on my bridge, and that was with these bridge push-ups. Here I keep it's really awkward to work out where I am in the movement. Like, I keep forgetting to push my shoulders over my hands until right at the end. So this is something I definitely need to work on my bridge. Just kind of have more awareness of where my shoulders are. You want to be pushing those shoulders over your hands as hard as possible and trying to straighten those legs. And you see me kind of work out at the end here. Now I kind of realise, and then I end up pushing my shoulders over towards my hands, and that is a more ideal position there. Finally finishing up, I couldn't get the rings to do some tricep extensions, so instead I did them in the push-up position. It's also a good little exercise for training your hollow body as well, because you kind of have to keep in a nice tensed out hollow body position the entire time you're doing these tricep extensions. I think it actually does make it harder if you bring your arms closer towards you, but again, I wasn't too worried about this exercise as aesthetics isn't really my goal. So kicking into the lower body day and the final day of training for this week. I'm actually lifting some weight here, and it's been a while, but I thought I would throw in some deadlifts. Now, just as a word, I am only lifting 60 kilograms, which is just under my body weight. It's actually 3/4 of my body weight. The reason for this is that I'm not going hard. This is a restorative exercise for me. I haven't deadlifted for a while, and that's because I had a trapped nerve on my glute, and it was kind of giving me all this pain when doing heavy squats and heavy deadlifts. So I'm just kind of working slowly back into it, working some higher reps and lower weight, and just really working the movement, getting my form right, making sure my activation of the right muscles is actually correct. So really focusing on tensing my glutes, tensing my thighs and my lower back, and just kind of making sure the form's there and everything feels smooth. I was pretty pleased I didn't have any pain during this workout, so it's looking like the recovery has gone well. So hopefully I'll start pulling some more weight in the near future. As always, supersetting these with some natural hamstring curls. I probably was quite a lot of glute and hamstring work in this particular workout, because the sumo deadlift especially is quite focused on the glutes as well. But as I said probably in previous videos, that is a definite area of weakness for me, as I've had this anterior pelvic tilt, which I've fixed slowly, but I definitely need to work on my glute and hamstring strength. So it's probably not best if you have relatively balanced legs. You might want to include more of a quad focused first exercise, but for my current situation, it's definitely beneficial. Then jumping into the standard lower body circuit. This is probably my favourite go-to circuit, which is why it's included in this workout. It's just quick and easy, and it's kind of cool to incorporate some of that balance work that I mentioned earlier, because all of these are single leg movements. I think slowly by slowly, with doing the loaded mobility on my hamstrings, it's actually giving me more of range of motion in my ankle, which means I can pretty much get these pistol squats, or shrimp squats even, with my knee all the way down to the ground, which is better than they were at the beginning of the program. So it's interesting how things kind of transfer over throughout the different days and different aims. Weirdly enough, my left leg is actually more flexible than my right leg, which is weird because my hamstring flexibility is actually more on my right leg than my left leg, so I guess they kind of balance each other out a little bit. Although apparently my balance isn't very good on my left leg, as I did fall over a couple of times during this set. So, as I mentioned, we're going straight into the second exercise, as this is the circuit. So, working single leg glute ham raises. Again, just a great exercise for the glutes and the hamstrings, and really balancing out your hips if you have underactive glutes and hamstrings and overactive quads like myself. If you don't, you might want to modify this workout slightly as it is focused around that point. I do like to finish these sets off with a little bit of a hold at the top position at the end. And then I'd like to include this in just to show that it was as part of a circuit, and I was just jumping straight into these Cossack squats. Probably one of my favourite loaded mobility exercises. Although again, my balance doesn't seem to be very good today. It seems to be falling about all over the place, which probably isn't very good. And then we get into the 2-minute odd set, which this tends to be just going backwards and forwards from each side to another. And we're finishing with the single leg straight leg deadlifts. Again, these are great for a little bit of a balance exercise. I also like to make sure that my body and my back leg is kind of moving in one line, so I'm keeping that glute tensed throughout the entire movement. That also makes the exercise a little bit more intense, as well as a little bit more of a challenge to balance. Anyway guys, we are moving into the end of this week. It has been a pretty tough week. I'm feeling really fatigued now at the end of it, but we will have a little bit of a step back in week number 5. So hopefully we can make all the gains from this week and the amount of effort we put in, the time and the sets. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will leave you with a little bit of an outro message. So that about wraps it up, guys. It's been a pretty long week. The workouts have been longer because of the increased volume, but hopefully it's all going to pay off. We're going to have a little step back next week with some higher reps and lower volume of sets. So that should help us recover in time for our final overload week, and then we can then test those skills. So thank you guys for watching. Again, if you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, and then if you really enjoyed it and thought it might help somebody you know, then please just go ahead and share this video and all the program. Thank you again for the 10,000 downloads, and I hope you have an awesome week. Train hard, and I will see you in episode 5. Peace.